Peace. You are tuned into Edible Activists with your host and favorite edible activist, Melissa L. Jones. On this show, we honor Black people and their stories in food and agriculture, celebrating legacy, traditions, contributions, and creativity that all stem from the land. So tune in and let's get started. Peace. This is your host and favorite edible activist, Melissa L. Jones. Today, we are diving into the rich world of Black foodways with Josmine Evans, founder of Indigo Culinary Co. As a cultural preservationist, chef, and storyteller, Josmine honors the culinary traditions of the African diaspora, one spice blend, one dish, and one story at a time. From her travels across the African Atlantic to her work with the Joy Project, she's reclaiming ancestral food knowledge and ensuring our flavors and legacies live on. Get ready for a powerful conversation on seasoning, storytelling, and food as resistance. Josmine, welcome. I'm so excited to see you.
I always listen to podcasts and hear the guests go, "Oh my God, are you talking about me?" But no, really, are you talking about me? What an incredible introduction. I'm doing all right, though. How about yourself?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. Listen, this show is all about you because you're doing great work. So it's spotlight's on you, Josmine.
I'm going to accept that for this time period.
All right. Well, we first have to shout out where you're tuning in from. You got to shout out the city. We got to rep your, like I like to say, set first, and then we're going to dig into the meat of the conversation because you got to do it, right?
Well, if I'm being very specific, to rep home would be to rep East Oakland, California, very specifically. Is where I'm from. However, I am talking to you from Detroit, which is the space that I'm currently residing and where the community that is helping me amplify this work are currently located.
That's awesome. Shout out Oakland, Detroit. Come on. Two beautiful, beautiful cities of just Black richness. So I love it.
Cousins.
That's awesome. All right, so let's get started. All right, so your journey in Indigo Culinary Co. Firstly, I love the name. But what inspired you to start Indigo Culinary Co?
Indigo Culinary Co. is a love letter to the flavors that raised me, the stories that shaped me. And it started as a business because I wanted to create a space that could be like a portal of not just nourishment, but memory, legacy, Black joy. It came from me watching my elders cook, but also from noticing the gaps where people who didn't get the same privileges as me to grow up under people who had these stories and were willing to share them and teach them. So after a particular amount of travels, a particular amount of experiences, I just was feeling like, how do I scale this? How do I get this other people to get access to this? Since traveling is not just a simple notion, especially to get across the Atlantic to Africa, it's a whole production. So, how do I then share these experiences that I've had the privilege to have with other people so that every generation, it becomes easier for us to connect and not more difficult or more distant.
I'm sure a production indeed. Sounds like someone needs to create a virtual list of all the things it takes, to travel that far and wide. What specifically, so is it fair to say that, and maybe not, that you grew up in the kitchen, you grew, in this culturally rich, environment, but is it fair to say that you started young in terms of being around the food and, all the things that combines joy and food and love in the culinary space?
Yeah, my childhood, I didn't know till I got older, was a little different from that of my peers, and that I was doing labor every weekend. I was working. We would pick a family member's, at least it felt random to me as a child, but like every weekend it was either in my parents' backyard, in my grandmother's yard, inside of somebody's house, redoing electrical, redoing plumbing, digging up mains and putting up fences and redoing roofs and stuff like that. So like as a child, those are the times I was putting railroad ties and creating retaining walls and stuff like that as a small child. And as a result, I developed two hernias. Um, and I had to have surgery. And after that surgery, my parents were really like cognizant about the amount of work that I was and was not doing because of this injury. But what happened is, you know, everybody has to have a responsibility. Everybody has a job. Everybody has to contribute. So I became the person that had to make sure people had something to eat when we took lunch breaks, something to eat at the end of the day when the job was done, or we were just, you know, quitting for the day and coming back the next day. It became my job to cook for people. And at the time, it wasn't like I felt like I was being crowned with some particular life purpose or responsibility at that time. But looking back, in terms of my contributions to the greater community that I benefit from feeding people has long been something that I do.
Wow, that's beautiful. Isn't it interesting to look back? You're actually not the first person who has raised the point of labor when they were little. And it's just like, when I look back, when my grandparents had us on the farm doing X, Y, and Z, like they were actually putting us to work and they couldn't stand it when they were little. But it's actually really beautifully put. And I'm sorry to hear about the hernias. I'm sure that is not a fun thing at all. But no, thank you so much for sharing. So, in preserving Black traditions, and you have done extensive travel. I think I also peeped a photo with you and the amazing Michael Twitty as well, who is phenomenal. But how have your travels shaped your understanding of Black foodways?
So, yes, I have traveled with Twitty now to six West African countries, and forever indebted and grateful for his choice to make this his life work, and to share it with others and make it a point to share it with others. In 2018, I just saw him post about going to West Africa and doing these culinary immersions, like in the bush, like just out there. In the rural areas and where they're still living these traditional lifestyles. And I reached out and I was like, yo, I stand. First of all, number one, I stand. And number two, can I join this thing? And the first year that we went into 2018, there were just six of us in Ghana. And the last trip to Cameroon in 2023 as a group, I think there were up to 30 of us in terms of Black people in the culinary profession interested in going back to West Africa to connect to our traditional foodways. And it's been a beautiful experience, a brainchild of Michael Twitty. I don't know if you know, he is Jewish, but kind of, I don't know why this is signing me out. Am I still here for you? Sorry.
No, you're
Kind
fine. You're
of
still
the
here.
same way that the Jewish church affords people return rights. And I'm not going to get into all of the problematics of that because we it is what it is. But just in terms of the framework of these Sankofa missions is what I call them, these returns to West Africa, trying to put programming where Black people in doing food work, some chefs, some farmers, all, you know, people that are engaged in this food work from different spaces to have the opportunity to go back and connect with our culinary roots. But every journey that I take, whether it's domestic, it's to the Low Country, it's to West Africa or the Caribbean, or even just back to like my family members' kitchens, it's all a reminder for me that Black foodways are vast, they're layered, they're deeply interconnected. And I've learned that ingredients and techniques travel with us, but so do rituals and rhythms and ways of being. And the way that people in Ghana may create a broth or how folks in New Orleans will simmer, you know, a pot of gumbo, it all speaks to the lineage and resilience and resourcefulness and beauty. And they like deepens my sense of responsibility, not just to preserve, but to translate these traditions, right, in a way that are become accessible to people, joy and healing for all of us.
That is so rich and that is so powerful. I can only imagine like how deep those experiences have been. And as a big fan of Twitty and having read his book and having watched him cook, I wasn't with you in your travels, but I could just see you all together and just soaking on that richness. And just thank you all for doing the work. And I'm so glad that you mentioned, like this isn't just isolated, to traveling internationally, but like domestically, whether you are in Oakland, whether you are in Mississippi or the Low Country, as you mentioned, I mean, the Black foodways, they exist in every corner of this entire world. And so that is super, super important. With that, do you feel like there needs to be more awareness but when it comes to Black foodways? Do you feel like it's been a little bit more progressive, but we just still have some more ways to go in terms of like just spreading awareness around Black foodways and where our traditions have come from and where they still exist?
No, we definitely have a ways to go. Like whenever I feel like, again, I was saying like I feel like maybe I feel redundant or I'm saying the same things over and over, or like a particular industry might feel saturated. I'm constantly being reminded, whether it's people posting silly stuff on Instagram or people that are close to me that have never seen how tomatoes grow or whatever it is. I'm constantly reminded that we need to be continuously having these conversations over and over. And I just also wanted to give shout out to Queen Mother Amatutu from Cameroon, who has been leading up this diaspora kitchen project. It's an international convening of chefs from around the world, highlighting Cameroonian cuisine, but inviting other diaspora chefs to come and have conversations about how these West African roots of our foodways, how these people move so bad, how these West African roots of our foodways show up throughout the entire diaspora. And I thought it was an incredible honor to be invited out to Cameroon this year to participate in that with another group of Black chefs to specifically to tell Black food stories, right? Because you see Black chefs we're everywhere, okay? Black people are everywhere doing our damn thing. But when we are showing up in these spaces where, international conversations are being had about food, it's under the white chef's hat, the French brigade system. They're cooking, vichyssoise and julienning this and whatever they've learned in culinary school. It's not really, and even if they do use some of our traditional ingredients, that's not what they've been invited to do, right? It's them putting their own swag in these other coded spaces. But to be invited specifically for the purpose of telling Black food stories on an international stage, I don't know anyone else who's offering those kind of invitations into these food spaces. And for it to be a Black woman, a Cameroonian Black woman, to be one of the first, if not the first, to step out and create that lane, an incredible honor, an incredible privilege to have been included in that group of people to do that.
Oh, goodness. I need to travel with you. You are tapped in. And you're right. I mean, there are a plethora of Black chefs, and this might come off controversial to like maybe a Black chef, and like mad respect. I know some really great ones, but sometimes I can't help but to feel that there is a disservice, being done to some of us when we engage in some of these Black food experiences, that the stories aren't being told. And I know that's like a deep rabbit hole that we can go down, but like I'm just curious. I am curious around those who are like super close to the story, super close to to the traditions, super close to the food ways and like you said, the rituals. And like when you see Black chefs, like what kind of like comes up as they are creating these experiences, but leaving those stories like out of that engagement?
It's a conversation I'm like constantly having with myself, with my partner, and with other people that I work with closely in this food industry space. And I have to continuously remind myself, everybody's not coming here for the same reason I am, and that's okay. Everybody is coming here with their own different reasons, their own intentions, and their own purposes. And that's not going to always align with why I'm here. And that's okay. Um, so all of that to say, it is a work for me to not be judgy, because I enter this space from a preservationist lens, because I enter this space from an activism in a political space, doesn't mean that everybody else is going to do that. And that's absolutely okay. Because their cooking, their presence still benefits the overall goal of keeping people connected with these foods. Because even myself growing up eating whatever I was eating from whoever was feeding me, it wasn't anything that I was like, oh, got to write this down. This is like got ancestral power and it's going to give me, I'm going to get free through these yams. Like that wasn't what I was doing. It wasn't until later, something sparks inside of you and brings you on this path of just this insatiable like lust for knowledge and connection, and affirmation of identity in these spaces. And so if it wasn't for the fact that somebody was just cooking those foods to just be cooking those foods so that I could continuously have access to them, then I never would have had the opportunity to follow whatever spark that sparked me. So we all have our different lanes and our different roles. But I definitely, because of that, like I lead with story, right? If I'm gonna have a pop-up, before you can get to my menu, you got a 1,200 word essay that you have to get through. Like I'm gonna smack you in the face with the stories every single opportunity I can. And sometimes it lands, sometimes it's a turnoff. I get it. Like, can you just put the food in the plate? I ain't come here for all of that. I get it, but I'm still gonna do it because that's just where I stand in my lane in all of this.
That was so well said. That was so well said. And food can be a very, judgmental space. And again, like paying homage to the Black chefs in this space. And quite frankly, some people just don't care. Like you said, they wanted to show up and eat and have a great time. And like that is okay. I do think there is, a great big opportunity for them to do that. But again, it's different market, different experiences, and that is okay. Meet people where they are. And it's so funny that you had said, like you lead with storytelling. I was out last night and we were looking at this cocktail menu. And the first thing that hit me was like all this history behind like the cocktails and all the things that was in it, like the herbs and stuff. And me and my friend were like, can we get to the point of where like the liquor, like what is in the drink? It was like a whole story map.
Oh, big ups to whoever created that cocktail menu. I love them and the work that they're doing. I see you.
You would love it. It was like this whole map and like everything. And as someone who's deeply entrenched in this work, like last night, I was like,
no,
where's the gin?
Where is the Manhattan?
So that I was just cracking up as you were saying that. You have, oh my goodness, like just so many experiences. And as we talk about storytelling through food, and just the spaces that you've been in, and how have you been able to weave history into your spice blends and your pop-ups, which they just look so divine. I need to tap in, y'all. Check out the website and tap into those spice blends. I'm gonna do so.
Well, there's the piece where you just smack people in the face with stories. I'm in a class right now for people with food businesses, and they asked us yesterday a question to like open up for the class is describe as experience that you had with a difficult customer. And I was like, I don't have difficult customer experiences because I make it so difficult to work with me that by the time a customer gets to this process, like they've proven that they're here because they really want to, because the process is so lengthy. But I do that because I tell people all the time, I'm not a caterer. I am a storyteller and food is my medium. And when you're inviting me into a space, you're inviting all that comes with that. I'm not just here to fill empty bellies because you need food to feed your people. Not that I can't do that work, because sometimes that is what the situation calls for. It's just people need to get fed. But when you're reaching me out to do this work, know that it's going to require some relationship building on the front end. We're going to have conversations on the front end. So that I understand what it is so that we can understand that our values are aligned. And when I show up in this space, there won't be any misunderstanding or misalignment or conflict. And so that's part of the way that I'm able to build the storytelling and the history and the understanding of the scope of this work is by making people have to sit down and talk with me. Like, you can't just go push a button on the internet and books, like you have to, I want to know, well, who's coming? What's the theme? Why? Because I want to know, are the people going to be receptive to what I'm bringing? This is sacred work to me. And I'm not bringing my sacred objects into just any space, right? And so when it comes to the pop-ups and the spice blends, though, the spice blends especially, there's something that helped me expand the reach, that expand the scale of this, because now people don't have to be at a pop-up. They don't have to be at a dinner or anything like that to experience what it is I'm talking about. They can experience it from anywhere in the United States, because that's the only places I'm shipping right now, unless you happen to be in Cameroon in February when I was giving out spices to people. But other than that, the US is where you're getting this right now. But every blend is a story. And one I like to use is the California Creole blend, because it actually chronicles the movement of my patriarchal lineage out of New Orleans into the Bay Area during the Great Migration. So it's a Creole blend. It's got what you'd expect: smoked paprika, garlic, onion, but it's also got smoked sea salt in there, sourced out of the Pacific Ocean. And the whole purpose of that is, one, to bring that Bay Area, Pacific Ocean energy. Salt is a crystal. It has memory. So it's bringing that energy to the spice blend. But then there's also the smoke, which is me telling the story of my father, who is our family's pit master. And I remember when I was in high school, I went to high school across the street from my house, like literally just across the street. Like, I could throw a rock from my home to my high school. And like during the summer months, like literally every day of my summer vacation, my dad would be out front barbecuing with wood, of all things. So that smoke is like home for me. So it was important for me to put that in that blend. And then I've got fennel and lemon balm and cilantro and lemon zest. And it's like, why are these things in a Creole or a Cajun blend? Like, what does fennel have to do with gumbo? Maybe you might think, but for me, it's called California Creole. So like these herbs, if you've ever been to the Bay Area in like the late summer, you know that if you're near that water, that fennel is like Spanish colonial Glade plugin of the Bay Area. It's just this fragrant reminder of that the Spanish were here. And it smells so good. My mom keeps bees, and the honey from her like fall harvest tastes just like that fennel. Absolutely beautiful. So for me, that's that storytelling, that piece of, this is a California blend from a California girl. I've got lemon balm and cilantro, and again, that lemon zest, which is a nod to the citrus trees that spill over fences and even the most urban neighborhoods in the Bay Area. There's this thing that happens when you have this Pacific Ocean collection of cultures and immigrants combined with the agricultural capacity of California. It just is really this, like, everybody's like, oh, it's avocados, it's a California thing, but there's this herby basil and coriander and lemongrass that just comes together in that Bay Area. So I have those things there just to make that statement. And whether it's my cooking classes or pop-ups, I'm always, again, leading with the story.
I don't even know what to follow up with, Josmine, after that. I don't. I really just don't. I mean, you just took me through this very flavorful, like just exotic. I love fennel. And oh my gosh, fresh fennel. Oh my goodness. That is divine. That all sounds divine. Have you done any of your own excursions, like own adventures where you're bringing people? I know you have the pop-ups, we have the blends, but have you done it? Like, have you done any of your own? And is that potentially coming up? Because it sounds like we need to take a trip with you.
The only thing that comes close to it is through the Joy Project work that I do this past February. Every February, the Marvin Ross who leads up the Peculiar Pig Farm in South Carolina, is a fifth generation Black pig farmer. Their family has a pig butcher every first weekend in February, and we get invited to come out there. And so this year we brought two folks with us that spend a lot of time volunteering at our farm to expose them to that part of the culture. Because we do the whole pig butchers and whole pig roasts at the Joy Project, and we've learned that from the Gullah Geechee folks in South Carolina that hold that culture. And so we were able to bring them back to South Carolina with us to where we learned from. And then we also take a group of folks camping every year. At the end of our season, the people who hang out consistently throughout the growing season, we'll take them camping and, we'll do the live fire cooking and, take care of ourselves with no electricity and no running water and those type of things. And we usually end up eating real good. But other than that, no, I do not want the responsibility of herding cats, as as they would say.
It's a lot. It is no picnic, as I'm
My
sure you
partner,
already
though,
know.
I think Gabby Knox.
Mhm.
She is like adamant about putting together a like southeastern Black urban farm tour where we like start in Texas and drive south and east, crossing like the Georgias, the South Carolinas, and then come back up north off that eastern seaboard before we head back to the Detroit area. And so that's been a that's been like a post-it note for the past couple of years. Like we gotta do this. It's just difficult because farmers don't get much of a break. And so to have people on the road for an extended amount of time is difficult to try to coordinate during a time that matters, because we could do it in January. We're not working in Detroit as farmers in January, at least outside. But what is the grand total of the experience we would get by being on people's farms in January? Um, which I'm just going to stop myself from tangenting right now. So
You can certainly tangent away. No, that makes complete sense. And also like January is like their rest time too, as well. So just being cognizant of like the rest that is needed for growers and farmers around that time. But listen, when it's time for it to manifest and actualize, it will happen. So I would certainly look forward to it. Food as resistance. How do Black culinary traditions reclaim identity and liberation for you?
well, to me, our food has long been a form of resistance because our ancestors knew how to extract brilliance from everything the land offered. What white folks called waste, we called resource. What they overlooked, we understood. And I like to make those distinctions with people who refer to our ancestral foodways as slave slop, or we made something out of nothing. It was never nothing. It never gave nothing. It never gave nothing. It was that our ancestors knew how to find the magic in even the smallest amount of material. Um, so we weren't just surviving, we were practicing culinary genius, ecological stewardship, and cultural continuity. Our gardens were sacred sites of strategy and community and power. Black culinary traditions are acts of reclamation. They are archival materials. They remind us that nothing is ever just a meal. Every pot of beans, every carefully seasoned roast, every jar of pickles is a declaration that we are here, we've always been here, and we know how to nourish ourselves on our own terms if you would leave us be. And that is what Indigo Culinary Co is about, is bringing the stories forward, right? Not as nostalgia, but like a living, breathing tradition that still shapes how we eat and how we grow and how we gather. From watermelon farming that helped folks trade fiat currency for a life that felt a little more like freedom. The piggy banks of Fannie Lou Hamer, George Washington Carver, who used our ancestral crops like cowpeas to restore depleted soils and depleted bodies. Our food has always been like co-conspirators and allies in affirmation and resistance, from tinctures made from cotton roots to help people with uteruses reclaim bodily autonomy. It's always been political, right? Everyday herbs and seeds and stews that carry our people forward. Our plants and our food has long been by our side in this affirmation of identity and fight towards liberation, regardless of our conditions.
Regardless of our conditions is right indeed. I had to slide over to the side so everybody could see my Fannie Lou Hamer photo in the back. That's what I was doing, pointing out. What's a photo wall without her?
Yeah,
No, that
we
is
have
that
an
is
event for her birthday. Every October we do a pig roast for Fannie Lou.
that is so, oh my goodness. I love it. Much respect.
If you
Much
don't see
respect.
us in June, come see us in October. But yeah, that's what I'm doing with Indigo Culinary Co. It kind of helps me expand beyond like my immediate community to be able to have these larger conversations. So yes, it's a product line that is just my way of being able to reach people in this tangible, like you can actually taste the story, right? Like this tangible way. If I tell people, this is like my thing when I explain to people what it is I do. Like if I tell people I'm telling a story about corn, like who's gonna RSVP for that? But if I say, I'm cooking shrimp and grits, people will show up to eat the shrimp and grits, and then while their mouths are full, I can tell them about that corn that they're eating and its story and how we've been in relationship with this plant and why it's important.
That is so beautiful. And listen, we need repetition, repetition, more like hammering into the stories over and over and over again. Misinformation is real, disinformation is real, ripping our stories and our context literally out of books, taking our books out of schools, out of institutions. It is real. It is tapping in to these local stories, local interviews, these local media outlets who are really sharing the lived experiences of us that is going to help. And so I am big on repetition. So I appreciate you for continuing to uplift your story, and not just a product line, but this is a fusion of your history and your lineage. And it's really just is powerful for the consumer who is purchasing, or supporter who's purchasing your product, even if they don't feel it right now, to look back at the work that you've done to say, you know what, this people are getting a taste for of my history, like all over the world. There is like so much to be said about that. And so regardless if they make the immediate connection or not, that is super powerful. And like, listen, we've always found ways to slide in. We've always had an underground railroad. We're gonna make it work. You're gonna taste a little bit of this magic on your tongue. We're gonna make it work. Okay. So I love all of that. What is coming up for you and the Joy Project this summer or this year?
Well, this product line is a big deal for Indigo Culinary Co. And I put a lot of work and intention into this storytelling in a way that I've been trying to figure out how to I don't know how to do less storytelling, but like how to make, because like I said, it is my intention that these things be accessible and palatable to people. And I know that a monotone lecture is like not the most exciting, engaging thing to get people, excited around these things. But figuring that out this summer, gauging people's responses and what the actual need and desire is beyond what I want to create is going to be a tone for me for Indigo Culinary Co. Trying to get more events schedules so people can come interact with these things and trap people into spaces to listen to these stories. Some supper clubs. I'm going to keep doing my pop-ups, keep trying to grow the like retail location so people can go interact with these things in person before they're like online trying to purchase. Those type of things. And with the Joy Project, oh man, the Joy Project is always guiding me to do more and surprising me with my own capacity to do more and more. We are holding down our just regular programming and weekly meetups at the Joy Project and our regular like events throughout the year, but we are also in the beginning stages of executing the build out of a community kitchen. So big things for Joy Project and for Indigo Culinary Co.
And we are here to support along the way, and hopefully you are resting along the way as well.
Yes, it is spring is springing, starting tomorrow, and all of that fantasy talk about rest. I mean, obviously, I do my best to prioritize it. I'm not going to act like I don't get it in, but this is the season to show up and show out. So I'm ready, rooted.
Listen, spring is sprung. Josmine, where can folks find you at online and social?
You can find Indigo Culinary Co, which, to be clear, is like very specifically food work, and feeding people and engaging around people around that, at indigoculinaryco.com, as well as Indigo Culinary Co, on Instagram. Those are the only two places that I have the capacity to manage platforms. And if you're talking about Joy Project, which is we do talk about Foodways, but it's mainly our agricultural partnership for me. That is Joy, the project, Joy underscore the project, on Instagram.
All right, y'all heard that. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you. I am in awe of your work, and hopefully we get to meet you in person. And so I just thank you for sharing your story, and I hope you'll come back. Will you come back on the show? Oh, you're on mute. We're doing the virtual thing, guys.
Sorry. I would love to come back. I would love to come back with Gabby together and talk about the Joy Project, and those type things.
That's awesome. And shout out to Gabby. Oh my goodness, she was on the show a couple years ago. So I just love what you guys are doing out in Detroit. And shout out Detroit, my favorite city.
It's really a lit place to be. I feel like it should be on like a prerequisite of for like the Black curriculum. All Black people should have to spend at least 3 years. And no, not that Black people should have to. Black people should get to spend 3 years grounding in Detroit. I don't know how Detroiters feel about that, about being the like incubation space for all Black identities, but
Listen, I'm not mad at that. All the Black history in Detroit, that sounds on spot to me. So I'm with it. I am with it. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful day and peace. Thank you for listening to Edible Activists. You can find today's episode on Spotify, iTunes, and Simplecast, and follow along on all social media platforms at Edible Activists for updates. Want to support this platform? You can do so by purchasing our commerce or connecting with me about media partnerships at www.edibleactivist.com. In the words of Baba Tariq Adunu, there is no culture without agriculture. Peace.